We will open up the meeting for the planning board for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. This is being conducted in a hybrid manner pursuant to the general laws. If anybody's recording, that is fine. You just need to let us know. Okay, hearing nothing. We will move on to the town planners report, 7:00 p.m.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Okay. Wanted to share with the board that I met with an owner's representative for 42 Depot Street, the condominium community that was permitted a few years back. We are coming up on the date in which that her extended decision would lapse. It comes in December. I think I brought it up to the board a few weeks back that Rebecca Associates had coordinated certain what I interpreted to be intentions for demolition and clearing and so on and so forth to initiate the project. But I at least wanted to share with the board that that individual was here at Town Hall to speak with Mr. Scott for the building department. He stopped in for an introduction. Although I haven't seen a copy of it, I believe he also submitted to extend the order of conditions for conservation for that project. Reaching out on their behalf also was Dwight Scott. I think he's out of East Long Meadow, but he's a general contractor that both Kyle Scott and I are familiar with through previous work here in town. And looks like he's going to be the driving force behind the execution on the ground for that project. So it looks like it'll be getting off the ground in the coming weeks.
Other than tearing down what's there. You know what they're, I mean, that to me is not meeting the requirements of the permit necessarily. You know, do they have other intentions beyond that?
As communicated to me, their intention is to frankly swiftly move forward with permitting and construction and mass earth movement. So those three, the elements that we just touched upon, which really amount to site preparation. So removal of existing structures, clearing of vegetation, establishment of erosion sedimentation controls, and then mass earth movement. I expect going to be, if you will, the three steps that they're focused on in the coming months and probably moving into the spring. Associated with that would be the establishment of your construction access out there. But I don't expect that vertical construction will be commencing.
No, but I mean, the idea is to do something before December, right? Or whatever, December, whatever it is. Not the best time to be putting equipment into the ground.
Wouldn't have been my my choice either.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm sure the police department is very happy if they're going to tear down that building. Those buildings.
There was even some discussion today about the fire department using it for certain exercises as part of that process. But nonetheless,
Yeah. The condition that they're in right now, I'm not sure the fire department is necessarily doing them, but
maybe inside is not British to conduct the exercise.
okay.
I'll be happy to share updates as they come down the line with them.
All right, thank you.
Short-term rentals. I think, and I apologize, the last meeting, my memory is a little fuzzy. But I wanted to share with the board that there had been a number of complaints submitted through the building department about some properties being used as short-term rentals here in town. And that fundamentally was, we're going to call it the final kick to spur into motion the building department permitting process. Associated with all of that, you will see a copy of the cease and desist letter that was distributed today. It looks like the numerous complaints that were received actually referring to a single property, so there's just one letter in everybody's packet. But to that end, I did participate in the preparation of forms So the Board of Health, the Building Department and I collaborated to get that rolling.
Um,
Let's see.
yeah, actually, let me just say, I prefer next time if we try to do so without a news article, without full process.
About which process? Oh,
Of, enforcement process for the short term rental bylaw.
oh, I'm afraid I did not see said article.
Yeah, for the team of what, the select board, is that word?
That seems,
Less than thrilled with that. But I also couldn't quite understand how you wanted to figure out. The neighbors came. What house it was.
I'm sure there's a very good reason.
So, but I'm glad there's a process in place so we can.
Let's see. 771 College Highway. The Dollar General project. Everybody has a copy of an order of remand from Land Court. That essentially indicates that the planning board will be opening and holding a public remand hearing. The public notice posting publication will be given pursuant to requirements of general law. At which point we will consider modifications to the decision. I say that with a slight question mark. If only that this will be my first opportunity to go through this in a formal fashion, as opposed to observing the results from the outside. And then filing that decision with the town clerk. We will see what develops at that public hearing. But I will set up, at this point, I've got room to open that up. This needs to conclude, let's see, I'm sorry, by December 17th. So I can advertise that for December 3rd. So, you know, that might be the most prudent step forward.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, I think it's open, right? Just treat it as if it's a regular public hearing, special permit, right? So all the abutters get notice and. Blah, blah, blah.
Yes, and I'm sorry, the word I left out as I was reading was the court vacating the decision, the planning board decision.
Yeah. So, put all the ones that part of the left over in the beginning.
Oh, I may not have anything dozen.
So, yeah, so I guess a couple things on your to-do list. Obviously, put this on for public hearing. Secondly, town council needs to come, we need to do an executive session. At the next meeting, December 3rd?
Yes.
All right. So,
Excuse me, Mike,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be available at all, December 3rd, can we push it off 2 weeks or can't do that? It's up to you.
no, I think you should be there. Given how it went the first time, so. I think that's appropriate.
I'll be in here.
What's the next meeting after that?
The 17th,
Okay,
the same date, which,
so, and that actually is probably better, so why don't we put it on for executive session, so that can just be done at the end of the meeting
on the 3rd.
on the 3rd, so that town council can explain everything. And then we'll put it on for public hearing on the 17th.
So I thought it said our decision has to be done by December 15th. Or is that when it needs to be opened by? What is that?
Yeah, I mean, putting aside my annoyance with the whole thing, I don't think it's appropriate if Dick can't, I didn't know that Dick can't be there. I sort of thought that the best course of action would be to say, do this with, all due speed that you can do. Rather than put a specific date on it so that we have a little bit of time for any issues that come up. But it doesn't seem appropriate to me to put this on for a public hearing if Dick can't be there when he was one of the people who voted against it to begin with, right?
Is
I-
that following the remand of the court though, and then if we don't issue a decision, they get to take it back,
It-
right? That's the
Yeah,
wording of the remand.
my point of view on this is,
I mean, do we need to schedule another meeting so that we don't run afoul of the court's order?
well, I guess, number one, I think we're complying with it. Number two is, if they really wanna complain about it, then they can complain and they can continue on with the litigation rather than have us hold a public hearing, which I can tell you in all likelihood will go their way. So, I don't think that there's any real chance that they're going to yell and scream if it happens on January, whatever, versus December 13th, but I mean, I think we've complied, but if on December 17th, we are opening and holding a public remand hearing. We have complied with that court order.
Okay, I'm not the lawyer. I wasn't in the room and agreed to it, so that's.
Very good.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't think you necessarily have to close it.
it does not, and so, I mean, I think, again, I would be happy to do it on the third, but I just don't think that that's appropriate if it's not gonna be there. Like I said, this is the exact sort of thing that I wanted to sort of avoid, but, so we will put that on, I would expect that they will be here on the third. I was told that they would be available to do the executive session, so they can, explain.
Thank you.
I can tell you that my intention after that. Well, it should be done before that, is to put on for a public hearing to. Revise. Why am I blanking on sections now? 185. What's the list of 17? Then 7 or 9, right?
Mhm.
Special permit section and the business restricted section. So I don't see how we can not do that. And I can also say that my expectation would be that there will be significant input from town council as to how those should be revised. Because as of right now, my understanding is that they're not valid. So I think that needs to be on sooner rather than later, because that's obviously gonna have to go to town meeting. I don't know if we can get done before whatever town meeting potentially is this fall or winter, whatever, at this point. But those are the fast track for this month.
Okay, I'll coordinate with you on some of the specifics, but make sure that we get that request in front of the select board.
And let me be clear, it's not the entire bylaws that are invalid, but there's parts of it that the question, so those need to be changed.
Understood. Okay. In lighter news, 95 Sheep Pasture Road. We most recently know of that property through some A&R efforts. In the past year or two, that's acreage that extends from sheep pasture down up over the hill and down to Great Brook. There was a complaint submitted with concerns about land clearing and grubbing without a stormwater permit. Randy and I both visited the site to the extent possible and viewable from both the right of way and from some adjacent property. Randy has had some interaction with the owners out there. If you want an opinion from me, I think that the 1 acre threshold has been tripped. But we'll certainly know, for sure in the next couple of months when new areas are released. And we'll see if any enforcement activity is necessary. Anything else I have to share? We're gonna run through when we get to discussion and business items. Appreciate it.
All right. 7:05, public comment. Anybody have anything for the board tonight that is not on the agenda? Okay. Hearing nothing. 7:10. Continued public hearing for 6 South Loomis Street.
Following, our last meeting, I did coordinate with town council to confirm, the validity of applying, fire department policy, for requirements of cisterns, to this particular project. Valid if you go through the fact that they apply for special permits. And the number of lots trips the fire department policy. We'll see how that shakes out, but I shared that with the applicant, and a request for some revised language in their shared driveway here.
So we have a request for a continuance. And that's available agenda.
662A, 710. Third.
Yeah, so why don't we put that at 7:15? So do I hear a motion to continue the public hearing for 6 South Loomis Street to 7:15 on December 3rd?
Dave Spina, so moved.
Pickle Singer second.
The roll call vote, Michael Doherty, aye.
Dave Spina, aye.
Pickle Singer, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Jessica Thornton, I.
Okay, Jesse, since you're here, why don't we take you? This is the discussion item, planning board review and reevaluation of subdivision infrastructure security for Noble Street crossing. Let's begin with you, John, with Jesse, how do you, where do we stand with this?
I'll give a 30-second, I suppose, intro. Jesse attended a regular meeting today over at DPW with Randy Rich Bostack, myself, and Will Parker attended as well, where we reviewed some preliminary cost figures and took another look at the projected schedule for completion of infrastructure work up there. Jesse, why don't you take it from that point?
Yeah, basically, I provided Randy and John with a summary of items that are left as of last Friday. We're still continuing working out there on a weekly basis. But my values were based off of last Friday, and Randy had a couple comments for me, putting a couple more things into detail, pricing wise. So I'm gonna go back and revise that, and we're gonna meet in another 2 weeks to come up with a more concrete number. And he's gonna look at his, and same deal, we're gonna discuss it again, all while continuing to work out there. Our goal is trying to get the sidewalks and the curbing all the way up to where the crossing is, and we're pretty close to doing that. And
There's still some stuff that'll be left for the spring, is that?
Yeah, we're gonna have to, the paving can't happen until the crossing.
Yep.
And I don't know how up to date you guys are with the crossing, but instead of just having a normal conservation restriction, we ended up having to have a Mass DEP 401 water quality permit. That's what we had to apply for. And instead of it just being a regular 2 foot by 3 foot box culvert, it turned into, I don't know the exact size because Terry Reynolds hasn't finished the design yet, but it's probably gonna be like an 8 to 10 foot wide by 80 to 90 foot long uh metal bridge. So, that's where we're at right now. Terry's working on the design. There's a draft in place, but John and Randy able to have a copy of it.
Once that gets approved, that'll go in and the pavement will be needed.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. But we're diligently working at it, and, I'm meeting with those guys every 2 weeks to update them on our progress out there, or whatever hiccups we might have, whatnot.
So if we look to the future, in roughly 2 weeks' time, we'll be sitting down with us with a more detailed look, specifically, I think, for the
Yeah.
crossing. Randy will have his preliminary figures. There's a bit of a compare and contrast. And to be fair, Randy, working on behalf of the municipality, is going to be a little more conservative than Jesse, and certainly his internal costs to execute the project are different from what we have to contract out. But the goal is to have, if you will, those sets of figures put together so that the board has a number, frankly, to review at our December 3rd meeting. All right.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Depot Square?
That's a placeholder. I have no new news.
Okay.
This evening.
Derek Drive, placeholder?
Yeah, nope, trying to get some action out of this. So the way we left the last meeting was to have a better understanding of perhaps the stormwater issues out there, right? What were they? What's it gonna cost? Let me start this discussion with my opinion. My opinion is I would advise the planning board at this time to, if we have to issue a recommendation, issue a negative recommendation based upon two primary factors. In addition to Randy Brown's summary of the pavement out there, missing monumentation and a number of called missing steps in the as-built plan. The two factors that I think we should cite in that recommendation include the stormwater infrastructure. I did review conservation's file for the project. As you might imagine, there was an order of conditions issued for the entire project. When stormwater issues at lot 20, which is roughly halfway along the distance of Stair Drive up, when those issues were made aware to conservation and others in town, a home project was proposed. Constructed after others in the area, but this also being the same lot where there was a stormwater conveyance. That conveyance was an open swale after a pipe. There was some blockage at the pipe and along the swale, and it discharged into a small non-jurisdictional, we're gonna call it pond, but basically a depression that held water. That depression and the swale being blocked with sediment allowed water during certain storm events to actually be discharged on the property directly down gradient, that residential property. That whole issue, and then the proposal for development at that property with the stormwater conveyances upon it, led to a permit amendment, a conservation permit amendment, to relocate that pond, if you will, that sponge, if you will, to receive some stormwater flows further back into the property, to lengthen the swale, armor the stone, and so on and so forth. I was able to use some of that stormwater conveyance earlier this year. while conducting an inspection at the abutters request of the DPW. The conveyance had been reconfigured at some point in time, to a piped conveyance, which has some benefits and some, detriments. The most significant to me being, was our observation back that the pipe was right at the surface of the ground. It wasn't sufficiently deep, and heating had caused separation along that pipe. I don't think enough at that time to cause water to be ejected from the pipe, but certainly it's an indication of, okay, this wasn't constructed properly, and I don't believe that there was a pond at the end of that now piped conveyance. Having said all that, what does it mean about the remaining work that could be done out there? At some point in time, after stormwater work at that parcel, conservation did see fit to release funds held as security for the completion of that project. However, they did not issue a certificate of compliance because I think the discussion at that time was focused just at that lot and some of the stormwater changes, which may have now subsequently been altered. The observation at the end of this is that there's an open order of conditions for that particular project. Nothing that the planning board has any control over, but as we look to providing a recommendation, it's problematic. There's an easement shown on subdivision plans for that stormwater conveyance and the pond area, but that easement was never recorded against the deed for that particular property or transferred to the town or anything. So now we have a stormwater conveyance on private property. And so the idea of, okay, well, what's the town, if the town were to be the project proponent behind this, go in there, to step in to remediate whatever issue there may be, at least to construct that swale properly. Well, it's work now on private property. Right now, there's not an easement for it, although everybody may benefit from the stormwater across that property. And we don't know what would be necessary to return, we're going to say, that particular stormwater conveyance back to function. How much space it may take, how it fits into today's conservation regulations versus when that was originally permitted. There may be other options, try to consolidate stormwater into a single conveyance, but the bottom line is that's a big open question mark. Perhaps one of equal significance would be the fact that there is a stormwater cistern, no, excuse me, I'm sorry, fire cistern at that property. It is not maintained by a homeowners association. The fire department periodically goes out there and I'm going to use the term inspect, but we're just going to say looks at it, right? Say, okay, can this be used? Does it function? I spoke with Brian Schneider over at the fire department, and he let me know that their last inspection just recently indicated that it was not available for pouring water from. It was something that was deficient that needed repair in the cistern. So the whole idea is that, okay, there's a fire cistern out there that's not being maintained by either the town or a homeowner association or the developer. It needs some repairs, it needs to be brought back to a functional condition, and it needs to be maintained. I think that needs to be, if the town were trying to seek acceptance, or if the town wanted to take ownership of all of that responsibility, it needs to be funded, there needs to be a solution forward. That's a lot of talk about, I guess, two important issues. But I think there has to be a path charted. And I know that's a little nebulous to just throw out there. If the select board would like a recommendation based on the information we have today, I think that, again, in my opinion, the recommendation would be against pursuing acceptance until we chart a path, until we look really at the global list, of costs associated with this, and how it gets funded. And that global list including, if you will, the deficiencies that Randy Brown shared in his correspondence.
So John, you're not for an HOA, is there actually an HOA out there?
I do not know.
Yeah, but I mean,
My awareness doesn't confirm its existence or not, but
I just think you have to. The other part of it is you have to figure out. Before. Yes, you do have to figure out a path forward, yes, you have to figure out funding for that path. But, which is important, but if it's all gonna be on the town anyways, kind of doesn't matter entirely. So I think the big thing is you just gotta figure out. What, if anything. You can do with either the private homeowner on that particular lot, or. I think arguably every homeowner can get an assessment for. Cistern repair, as a member of a non-existent homeowner association goes to meet, right, so. And I don't know you could do that, but I mean, I think they just at least have to explore whether. Those are feasible and whether they want to or should do those, before. They take any action, because then you're. Putting it in the hands of, okay, we're gonna take it over, so why would you ever agree to do anything? with private home? So, I think they have to figure that out, how they're gonna put that route in. Once they get past all of that, those issues, and it's all town-based. Then it's a little easier.
I think to your point, you're saying it all comes from the same kid in the end, it's just a matter of ensuring that there's what we call it buy-in from the residents affected by this deficient infrastructure.
Well, I mean, I don't know enough about, I haven't looked at any of it, right? The order of conditions ran with the property, so whoever owns that property right now has an open order of conditions.
And
I don't
quite
know.
possibly, if you will, the entire subdivision to the spec that whatever areas are in jurisdiction.
Correct. I mean, I don't, and I'm not saying that you should pursue those or not, but I mean, I think you just have to figure out. What the position of the town is gonna be in doing that. And then if it's gonna be just, we're spending town money to get this up to par for accepting the road. Then as long as that is sort of a condition to be satisfied, then. I wouldn't have a problem accepting it as long as that's done. So it's up to them. There's other people to figure out how that's being funded and executed.
Mr. Chair, would it bring you joy if I were to pen a letter to try to communicate those points?
Beyond what you would believe. So,
If it would bring you and any other planning board member joy, then I'm happy to, take a step to try to communicate that, and if you will wrap up this particular
Yeah.
request.
and I would say attached, Randy's, I don't know if you have anything. That you've generated, but attach Randy's. Comments, so that they have that.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that I share that with everyone for the next week.
Well,
How about that?
772, 774.
So I added this to today's agenda for a very limited discussion. As a follow-up, and bear with me as I look down. To my report last week. Dr. Walls and I had met, and we talked about what to do with the residential units. Putting them into the primary structure closest to College Highway. It was not palatable to him, amongst other reasons, because it throws the square footage of the building into a fire suppression requirement category. In contemplating moving those residential units over to the warehouses at the rear, the concern was that going to provide a quality living experience for residents. So I have, let's see if I can share this. Please. A schematic. One moment. Thank you. The schematic that Dr. Wells shared with me, where he proposes to locate the two residential units that were proposed in the main building for College Highway to their own standalone structure off of the cul-de-sac at the rear of the property. In the same vein as our initial discussion about reconfiguring and take a closer look at this project, I wanted to draw the planning board into this discussion. I think the inclination was that if you want to make changes, please bring it forward as a special permit modification. I don't think that would change with this, but I suppose the idea is to take the temperature of what we see here, if the board is so inclined to share. I did share with Dr. Wells that any residential component would need to have safe pedestrian access to the College Highway frontage.
Where would the driveway for that be, John?
I'm sorry?
Where would the driveway for the residential units, where would that be?
So his proposal would be to have them access directly off of this turnaround cul-de-sac at the end of the, actually at the eastern extent of the.
Go across highway and drive straight in?
Parking where?
So you'd be, my interpretation of this would be, to have this as side by side units. And so your parking would be in, at least one garage piece and one space out in front of the garages.
And the
I'm
driveway,
taking a lead here. I'm just interpreting from the information we see in front of us.
so the driveway to the residential units would be on the north side of the project, is that correct?
That is correct as it sits today.
It's really.
Fair enough.
My initial thought is that it sort of defeats the purpose of the mixed use, right? I mean, mixed use is intended to be. Utilizing the commercial space with residential space above. But I have to look at the bylaw, see exactly what it says. I'm assuming.
I think if you take a look at our business restricted zone, which is where this is, right, John?
That's correct.
Under section D7, it brings out to maintain the intent of the business restricted zone, any residential uses allowed as a part of a mixed use development shall be located above the floor or street level of the building or in the first floor portions of the building that do not front the street or have access on the street frontage. I would, looking at this is a single family home being built at the end of a cul-de-sac in the business restricted zone. It's not exactly a mixed use.
And that's, yeah, thank you, Jessica. That's what I thought. I mean, I kind of had that in my head. I was giving Rob the benefit of that, but you know, but maybe he has a way around it. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that's at least the intent. And it sounds like it is specified in there, so I'm not sure there's a way around it. So I'm happy to listen to it, but and we can have further discussion about that. But otherwise, regardless, it's gonna need to be put on for a modification, if that's the path that they're gonna go down.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Just since this is under discussion, to add some text to that discussion. Bear with me. D7, right? Any residential uses allowed as part of a mixed use development shall be located above the floor / street level of the building or in the first floor portions of the building that do not front the street or have access on the street frontage. To be fair, I know if we, having had similar experience and discussions along College Highway about this mixed use component of the bylaw, we might word it a little bit differently today. But I want to bring to the board's attention that we do have a standalone residential unit over at Country Auto Sales. And there may be some opportunity within that D7 for flexibility.
This country also, is that grandfathered in? I mean,
That was, I mean,
so yes or no, John?
didn't love that one to begin with.
Understood.
Um,
And to be fair, there's, every site that offers unique opportunities. And that may have been the proper opportunity for that location.
That's fair. Can you? Ah. Will there be anything in that decision that talks about that, or do we just need to go back and listen to what we discussed during the course of those hearings?
I
Yes.
I don't believe there's enough specificity to lean on in the decision. Having said that much, be happy to begin that review process and perhaps even share that with Samantha.
It's a separate building. Is
As
there any connection?
right now, oh, I'm sorry, over at,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, which decision are you talking about? Because I was not thinking about the
I'm
country.
sorry, I'm thinking about Country Auto. So in Country Auto, there's a building in the front, right? Or am I thinking of something different?
No, I think you're correct, that garage, that is the operations center for the
And
sales.
then that building in the back is standalone? Or was there any connection?
2 seconds, we can answer that. We're together now, right?
It's still standalone.
It's standalone?
Yeah.
Mr. Sutton's correct. Which, having shared that for further discussion, I do find to be rather specific. And that may change even the feasibility of what has been shared with us today.
Yeah, I'd have to go back to look at our discussion on Country Auto. To me, Country Auto was trying to make use of what existed. That one, that one,
To your point, that was a, what you
Mhm.
said, there was a result, there was a permitting path forward to resume a lapsed residential use.
did that go into the new bylaw?
No, it was before that, so
Yeah.
we were able, it was clean enough as it sat. So perhaps it's apples and oranges.
I just gotta go back and look at it. I mean, that, you know. I do like to be consistent, but that language is pretty clear. If we screwed up Country Auto, then I'm not sure that means.
Doesn't mean
Keep the story on.
right, that's,
But, you know, and that one to be, you know, if it's a screw up, then it's justifiable because you had a building that was going. You know, was there. This one's just trying to. Change what it already got through.
I will. I think I'm hearing the feedback from the board accurately, and I'll be happy to share that with, Mr. Walsh.
I mean, and then, but the other question, it doesn't change the permit that is granted and how that needs to play out, but I mean, I guess I don't know if it applies to BR zones, but does this change completely in February when they're allowed to put in?
I think because, well, it depends, I suppose, is the ultimate answer. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
I gotta have a little more to add to this, discussion in just another item or two.
Yeah,
So
so
it's not the by right element, since single family homes are not permitted. By right in the business restricted zone.
and that's the. This is coming from a statute. Like, yes, coming from a statute. So it's. So it's limited only to. Where single family is allowed by right. And that would probably be.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll be happy to share that feedback.
Okay. Going to do a decision. Any A and Rs or?
No ARs.
Fantastic. Planning board member comments?
I'll throw it to staff, but if you'll entertain it.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't say staff, I should.
That's okay, I think you're in any action over there. So, planning board members, I shared. I think I shared just, last Wednesday or Thursday, a request. That if you have any, suggested modifications to that initial accessory dwelling unit, bylaw. That I, borrowed and penned and broke up and now don't like it very much. But nonetheless, if you have any suggestions, please share those with me. The idea is, we're going back to the discussion of the zoning freeze out here. Don't know how I got my signals crossed, or why it's what I heard for gospel. But the bottom line is, if the select board has been presented with a draft, and that draft is available, and the public at the time at which we post a legal ad, post with the town clerk, and send our the necessary mailings for that bylaw change, then that will essentially freeze zoning for a period of up to 6 months to the town meeting in May. There will not be a winter special town meeting. The reason why I'm asking for any modifications is to try to get this as close as possible to something that we, as the planning board, right, that you all may present to town meeting, to try to be as comprehensive as possible. I have spoken at significant length about the topic with town council. Guess what? It's new. There's not a whole lot of guidance yet. There is some guidance coming from the state, presumably in December. Town council's advice was to reach out to my contacts over at PVPC, because surely they are assisting other communities and are immersed in this topic to a greater degree than they are. Having said all of that, there are a couple of issues, and I won't drag you way into the weeds on this, but the bottom line is, we will need to modify our site plan review. If that's what we're gonna lean on for bringing in these, if we'll now buy our accessory dwelling units. Oh, there's a word or two in there where, everything except for a single family home, accessory structure to that, we have to modify that section right there. So at least we can exclude accessory dwelling units from that exclusion. A site plan review. There remains a number of questions related to if you're in a district that allows single family homes by right, but if your parcel doesn't allow it by right, for example, an estate lot, right? I need to have an understanding, I think we should have an understanding, okay, is that an appropriate location for an accessory dwelling unit? What does that do to an already, I'll use the term compromised, or at least very specifically designed access? In a similar fashion, what does it do to a common driveway to potentially double the number of dwellings served by it? Oh, gosh, and what about pre-existing non-conforming common driveways? So it's a moving target, but I do welcome any suggestions. My intention would be to, after those suggestions, share them again with the select board. We do have a recommendation, referral to hold the public hearing, but I would share with them once again, get a renewed referral and open that public hearing. I think I need to buy myself a little bit of time. I think we need to get whatever guidance is provided by the state in December. I expect that's going to be about a January tap. Got to kick this off and make some sense out of it. Looks like we have some other bylaws to modify as well. Thank you.
Minutes approval. Everybody get a chance to look at the 28th.
You have a revised copy in there with Jessica's modifications.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes for May 28th?
Dave Spina, so moved.
Dick Hudson, second.
Do a roll call vote, Michael Doherty, aye.
Dave Spina, aye.
Dick Hudson, aye.
David Sutton, aye.
Jessica Thornton, I.
Nothing else. Mr. Sutton,
I make a motion to close down the Zoom meeting.
Dave Spina, second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Have a good evening.
Night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh.